What's up, you guys? Kathy here. I am just dropping in some Friday wisdom for you because I want you to consider the idea of looking at your health and wellness a bit more like a business. All right? And while that might sound a little bit sterile, there's some very good reasons why I'm going to say this, okay? And this whole idea, why I'm jumping in here right now and felt the need to do it right away, is because I was just reading a post from a business strategist, all right? And they were talking about the idea that systems in a business replace the need for emotional reactivity and decision fatigue. All right, that was her statement. And that just really jumped out at me because that's a perfect parallel that we can use in our health and wellness. All right, so if you think about this from a business perspective, let's imagine you have a business and you have a customer complaint. All right, you might react to that emotionally as a business owner. You might see that as a bit of an attack, or you might get upset about it, and you might respond poorly to that customer complaint or deal with it poorly. If you have a system in place, or get fatigued trying to decide how to deal with it, if you have a system in place to deal with customer complaints, as soon as that complaint pops through, you switch into, great, I've got a system for that. I'm going to work through this system. And if it's a well-designed system, which hopefully it is if it's there, that will take care of that issue, and it will be, everyone will go home happy. It's a win-win for the customer and for you as a business, and that will get taken care of perfectly. All right, so that system can help remove this emotional attachment to that action, that complaint, and instead have a solid system in place to take care of it. Then, of course, if that complaint kept arising, if more customers were coming back with the same complaint, or if it just kept popping up, then you would ideally start to look a bit wider in your business, wouldn't you? And think, what else, what other systems in our wider business can we look at that might prevent that complaint from popping up in the first place? Do we need to implement new systems? Are our systems not working as well as they used to, or do we need to tweak them or improve them in order for that complaint to not arise anymore? And this is a perfect overlap, all right? This is a perfect parallel of a way that we can look at our health and wellness. Imagine now that that customer complaint is not a customer complaint. It is an anxiety attack, or a bout of anxiety, or an escalation of your feelings of anxiety, all right? You're going about your day and this anxiety comes up. Rather than letting it get the better of you and having this emotional reaction to it and going, oh my God, the anxiety's back, what am I going to do? I've failed in the things that I've been trying to overcome my anxiety, and I've clearly failed. All these emotional aspects come in, and then there's this decision fatigue. What am I going to do about it? How do I deal with this anxiety? How do I deal with the effects that I'm feeling? And that just puts you further and further into a hole, right? If instead, when that anxiety arises, you have a system in place to deal with it, and you go, right, anxiety, I'm feeling this, and I know how to deal with this because I've got a system in place that I've tried before, and I know that this system takes care of this anxiety. You can flick into like an autopilot, and you can remove this emotional component entirely and use that system to take care of that anxiety. Then, same system, if that anxiety keeps occurring in the same place or in the same way or in a, repeatedly in a similar pattern, we can look wider at your wider health and wellness and lifestyle and routine and go, what other systems can we put in place? How can we work backwards from that point? And what other systems can we put in place that will allow that anxiety to perhaps not happen in the first place, or for allow it to be a lot less or a lot less frequent? So it might be that you identify that there is something in your life in particular that is causing that anxiety. So if you can work backwards and identify what that is, then you can decide whether that thing is avoidable or not. And either way, you can create a system around that. So you can either create a system that avoids that thing, so you don't get the anxiety at the end of the day, or you can create a system that, if that's inevitable, and if you cannot avoid that thing in your day that causes you the anxiety, then you can have a system in place in order to deal with it in the moment before it ends up resulting in anxiety, all right? So if you think of this like a business, it's a bit like a customer complaining because the wait time is too long for their food at a cafe, for example. If you know what's causing that longer wait time, then you can either deal with it, or if you can't deal with it, you can put measures in place to placate that client or that customer before it becomes an issue. You can warn them that it's going to happen. There's all these steps that you can do that will ultimately result in that issue and that problem and that concern not being present or being drastically minimized. So if you think of it like that, our habits are our systems. Habits are just systems, all right? Whether they're good habits, bad habits, they're all just systems that we've learned and we've repeated enough that they've become ingrained. So we can use this to our advantage, and we can bring mindfulness and bring awareness to our routines and our patterns and develop systems in our day that removes that emotional component. It's not super simple, guys, all right? I'm not saying that it's just like this and that whole emotional component is gone. And I'm not saying that that emotional component is not important, because our emotions are very important, and that whole mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect needs to be validated and needs to be investigated. But a lot of times we can overreact, and we can fall into the same traps by not having systems in place. So if we think of our health and wellness more like a business, and what would you do if this was a business and coming up against these same issues every day or every week, then you would put systems in place to deal with that. And we can do that in your health and your nutrition and your lifestyle as well, to stop those end results or to deal with those end results better when they come up. All right. And this is something that I've kind of been talking to you guys about, some of you recently, some of you that I work with, obviously, about these systems and these habits, and how putting these systems in place can help that end result. And it's very much something that is being covered in my training. So I've just been doing all my slides and finishing off the content for that for you guys. And there is a whole component in there about how these systems can remove this decision fatigue and this emotional reactivity and this tax on your willpower, and this need to exert more willpower in order to do what you need to do and resist your impulses. If you get the systems right, then all of that is taken care of so much more easily. All right. So we can take some lessons from businesses when we're looking at our health and wellness. Think about how you can treat your day or your routine or your health as a business, and look at the systems that are in place. Do they need improving? You've got a lot of systems that you probably aren't aware of, or aren't aware that are systems. So being aware is the first point. Get aware, look at your routine, see what needs tweaking, see what needs improving, and test out different systems. All right, a business doesn't just put a system in place and assume that it's going to be fine. It'll test out different systems to see what works for that particular business, because no two businesses are the same. All right, and that's exactly the same with you guys. A system that works for you won't work for me, because we're entirely different people with entirely different emotions and entirely different routines. So you need to test and tweak and feedback and be aware of these systems, and use your own life and your own body as your experiment, all right, as your laboratory. All right, head on out this weekend and see if you can identify some systems in your day and your routine, some that might be working really well or some that might not be working so well, and see with some of the things that come up, some of those end results that perhaps you want to avoid or you want to improve, whether there's some systems you can put in place to help, kind of get ahead of the game and stop those effects from happening before they even get there. All right, I'd love you to let me know how you get on. Let me know what systems you've got or you're aware of, or which ones you're going to try and implement. I'd love to hear from you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.